Okay.
I'm going to check Diane's going to do delay.
Okay, thanks.
We're going to get underway. Thank you for attending today's lecture, Visions of the Past and Present. 26 years in the field.
Yes.
Our lecturer today, Ferdinand Dimailig, before he joined Box Studio, started the company of Fuel Design. He believes in single syllabic titles for his firms. Collaboration with fellow business partner Daniel J.
Grace?
In 2001. They had a very successful practice and a conscientious effort to maintain a diverse portfolio of project types, allowing the organization to sustain profitably in an ever-changing economic environment. Boy, is that music to my ears in these days. Right? That was before Box, and now, with over 20 years of architectural and interior design experience, local, national, and international markets, a varied architectural and interior knowledge has enhanced his diverse background of both design and technical aspects of the profession. One of the reasons we wanted you here. He co-directs all internal and external business activities for the Chicago studio Box. His continued success is attributed to business integrity, professional client relationships, and continued project involvement. Projects have ranged from educational, multifamily, healthcare, government, mixed-use, retail, corporate, hospitality, and restaurant projects. Some of the very noteworthy experiences include the 2620 Washington Loss, an over 100,000 square foot mixed-use project, Metro on Melrose, 80,000 square foot multifamily residential project, and Osaka, 2,500 square foot restaurant. All these are in Chicago. Also, one of the things that we really appreciate about Ferdinand is that he not only practices, but he teaches. And certainly one of the things that got me into teaching is that I knew by teaching, or I thought, that I could remain more vital as a practitioner, and I'm sure that similar things motivated you. So he's worked with the Illinois Institute of Art in Chicago for over 9 years, and has recently been noted as one of the best design schools in that area for sure. Now, tonight's a special, or today, I feel like it's not because we're indoors, but it's a special occasion also because this is the Lee A. Bryant Memorial Lecture on Art and Architecture, which is generally our kickoff lecture of our distinguished lecture series. And before we go any farther, welcome our speaker, I would like to welcome Lee Bryant. If Lee would come up and say a few words, and Lee's husband, Jim Beasley, is hiding over here in the wings. So, Lee, would you please come up?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Scattered. I didn't do as well a job.
It's okay.
And I'm so happy to be with all of you today. I am really happy to be here. I am really happy to be here. Because yesterday, about this time, our fifth wheel travel trailer blew out a tire and we were on I-35 talking with Trooper Brock. So I'm really happy to be here. And I'm married to a great safe driver. I'd like to know if Heidi Highland is here. Does anybody know Heidi? Okay, great. I'm on Diane Pont's email list for press releases. And she sent me a press release about Heidi Highland. Sounds like a lovely young woman. I'm sorry I don't get to meet her. Heidi Highland, a fifth-year student in architecture at Kansas State University, has been awarded the John E. Holstrom Alpha Tau Omega Architectural Scholarship And then it tells lots about all the wonderful things about Heidi, including the fact that she has better than a 3.9 grade average. The Holstrom Scholarship nomination stated she has outstanding grades combined with service, and she provides enthusiasm and perfection to the K-State Department of Architecture. As a teaching assistant for the structures class in the fall of 2009, Highland was a very bright and talented young woman who handled herself in the most competent and professional fashion. Then it goes on to say, she is proficient in AutoCAD, Rivet, is that how you say that? Rivet. Rivet?
Close enough.
Revit. Thank you very much. I thought it was Rivet. All right, Revit. You can tell I'm not. 3D Max, Adobe Illustrator, InDesign, Photoshop, and SketchUp. And if my husband, Lee Bryant, were here today, he would have one question about Heidi Highland, who has all these wonderful accolades and all this great experience. And that one question would be, but can she draw? Because Lee, when he was your age, really loved to do architectural drawing. And it was at that time that he was a fellow student of Professor Alan Goodman's. And it's because of Alan and his interest in Lee, commemorating Lee, and in helping all of you get fired up at the start of the school year that we have established this memorial lectureship in his honor. I met Lee when he was 38, I guess, and he died when he was 40. So I didn't know him very long. But during that time, he got a phone call from maybe somebody just like you, a student at Kansas State University. Have any of you done telemarketing? You call up and say, I'm a student, would you send us some money? Huh? Have any of you done that? Great, thank you so much. It's because of you. It's because of people just like you way back then who made that phone call that we're doing this here today. Because when that student called and said, I'm a College of Architecture student at K-State, you remember in Manhattan, remember that? Could you send some money? We could use some cash. You ought to try this, Dean. I mean, it really
Oh, I do it all the time.
And so Lee sent some money. And when Lee died, and all his people came forward and said, oh, what can we do? How can we help? What can we do? We said, send money to K-State. And then Alan helped to figure out what we were going to do with the cash when we got it. And it's because of that, it's because of the students like you making those phone calls that generated the dough to make this event happen today. And to give me the opportunity to meet this honored speaker. I'm so excited to hear what he has to say. But I know what the dean really wants is in this envelope. So I'm delighted to give this to you, Dean McMillan. Thank you so much.
What I really want to get to see Lee and Jim at least once a year, so that's a great thing. But I think there are a couple lessons for all of us here. And by the way, I was called by Syracuse University wanting my donation last night, but I know they have to pay their employees to make that call. And the volunteer effort of our telefund, I think, is fantastic, and I think we all appreciate that. But I think the other thing you hear is the lifelong commitment to this place, which hopefully we're building within you now, and I think that's very significant. Lee was obviously a very special person, and we're glad to recognize him every year in this beginning thing. So, without further ado, I am very pleased and excited to hear Ferdinand Dimailig's lecture today. Please help me welcome Ferdinand.
Thank you. Is this working? Hello? Hello? So good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Well, I've got the urban architectural uniform on, as you can see, all the black. But as I kind of walked out of my room in the hotel across the street, I got stopped twice. Okay, the first time was an Elvis sighting, so that's not me. The second time was a priest, and I said, no, I'm not that. And I said, did you not just recognize all the rubber bands? You're an architect, so that's how that all kind of worked out. I'm really excited to be here today. And I got a call from Donna Fulmer, a teacher here, about 6 months ago and asked me to do a speech. And me? You want me to talk about architecture? And I was really excited about being able to come here today. I went to school in an urban setting, and so the environment is very different. So I was excited to see what this environment would be like. One thing I did recognize over the last day-ish is the passion at the school, the people talking about projects and architecture and really wanting to be here. And hopefully that's why you're here today. So as I see these faces and look in here, looking at the future of design, hopefully you like to do this because it's all about passion. Okay, I always tell my students that you start here for the passion of design. It's never about the money. If it is, you're in the wrong profession. Okay, the money will eventually come if you like what you do. So the way I kind of thought about putting this together, thanks, if you can dim the lights, thank you, is really to look back at my career, 26 years in the industry here, and really go with starting at school and some of the things that affected my life architecturally, whether it was school, your first job, whatever the case. I basically just put that in a timeline and really went through with finding certain points in my career to figure out what was best. So the first thing I came up with is studying architecture, and very excited about coming to school and really experiencing what this profession was about. And so inspiration to me was one of the first aspects of design. But what I'm going to tell you, and you won't realize it until maybe 26 years later, is how your teachers will affect you and how they really are here to mold your minds, and that you don't realize how big of an effect they will have on you until you're actually gone and you're coming back to a university and maybe speaking about your work. So I was fortunate to be able to be taught by a number of very renowned teachers. One of them is Stanley Tigerman here, and for those of you who don't know, he's a very reputable architect, and he's known for a lot of his, I would say, writings and practice. One thing, going to the school, the rumor there was he was one of the toughest guys around, okay? The story went that he, during a crit, he provided a student 25 cents and said, you're going to need to call your mom to pick you up because you are not going to be an architect. And so that was his way to kind of motivate you, right? So he was my fifth-year studio teacher who, I'll give you another story. As I was in studio working, I had my earphones on, using the Walkman, if you guys know what that means. I had a Walkman going on. He came in the room. I turned my Walkman off, but I had my earplugs on and started packing and hear him screaming across the room. I told you to get your stuffs on the wall and start getting ready for the presentation. And that's the nice way, to be honest with you. That's the nice way. He said he used a lot of F-bombs, I would say. And so he said, I can't wait to get to you. And I thought, oh man, I think my heart just sank to the side here. And as he got to me, I was able to perform and show him that I was working. And he mentioned that I was lucky that I had information and that did a nice job. But what I realized was at now is really his motivation is a little different, okay? It's different from what we do today. He was under the wing of Bruce Graham, who was one of the main architects at SOM. And the way they teach was a strong hand. You know, nothing was ever good enough and it would be thrown away. So I just realized that was part of his teaching, and that's just what it was. And he wasn't trying to be mean to me. He didn't really know me, you know. So I understood that. Another teacher that I was very heavily influenced by was Eva Maddux. And I've gone through school and see how branded environments is an essential part of your guys' education these days. And Eva, this is 20 years ago, would talk about how to brand projects and how logos and information on the interior and how you present them become this other aspect, and really didn't understand that until now, which over the last 7 years has really kicked in. Other teachers that had a very good influence is Thomas Gordon Smith. He was the director over at Notre Dame, was at our school my freshman year, really taught us the basics of scale, classical design, information regarding proportions. So that was very cool. And one of my other fourth-year professors, Doug Garofalo, who is doing a lot of cool work right now in regards to the deconstructive architecture, juxtapositioning of space, turning three-dimensionally, just really kind of neat stuff. So I started looking back, and this is 20 years ago, and I found projects and how that related back to some of the designs. So excuse the photos because we did not have digital. That was taken on a Kodak camera. That 35 millimeter had to be sent over to Walgreens and then printed. So these are 20 years old or so. But some of the things that I realized was formality in design, and this was a park over on the west side of Chicago. Formality of design. I started thinking about deconstructive architecture and maybe how do you make things more dynamic, so you can see how the baseball fields are kind of moved around to add more dynamic, and a track field and basketball court. So I started thinking of some of those things. But again, the teachers have really affected what those things are. Another project that I'm pulling up is Entryway to the City. Basically, my portion of it was the urban planning of a parkway. So, just kind of, I would call them urban trees, actually. So was able to design things in a really complex form. Specifically, the design of the park itself, we took overlays of Burnham plan with consistent, or plans of today, plans previously before the Burnham plan, and overlapped them, twisted them, and then picked out certain areas to develop the plan. Another project working with Eva Maddux talking about branded environments. What? Branded environments. Well, she talked about things like, how do you display things? How do you make the display part of the brand? So we developed models and details to kind of do that now. In 1989, I was fortunate to be able to go overseas and understand you guys need to do that as well, which is pretty fantastic. I was at my third year of architecture and kind of know the drill, man. You guys are working late, working hard, trying to figure out the profession, right? I got to a point where I wasn't sure if this is what I wanted to do. And through the late nights and all that kind of stuff, and just really having a tough time thinking about the whole profession. Well, I got an opportunity to go over to Europe, and that was a dream of mine. Once I got there, just opened my eyes to, what this world is about, experiences, and that really set me going. So by the time I got back, was there a year, I was really ready to finish up, and that really took me over the edge to just really finish. But can you imagine, and some of you might have already been to these places, but things like you've seen in the book, the Roman Colosseum, to be able to touch it, feel it. I can't even explain to you, these are some of my pictures and sketches, but that they couldn't even explain the experience and what that's like. So whatever you can do to get out there. Mont Saint-Michel, which is on the northern coast of France, which is basically a little castle island where during the evening the tide comes in and gets enveloped by that. And it was something that I didn't really know about until I went over there, saw pictures, and took a Eurail over there and said, I got to see this thing. Things like Sagrada Familia. Oh, I'm sorry, not Sagrada Familia. Yeah, Sagrada Familia by Antonio Gaudí. Just to see that, I've seen it in pictures, but to really be up there and touch the stone, you see the blank area right there. Actually, I had a horrible sketch, so I kept it off. So that happens. Ronchamp, right? Le Corbusier. And again, just these, I don't know, morphed forms. I don't even know what you call that thing. With these beautiful beam of light that came into the church. Was just, I mean, nothing that I can even explain, but beautifully, something I saw in books and wanted to see. Not only the older stuff that we got to see, but the new stuff. This is Parc de la Valette, which is the Park of the Future, designed by Bernard Tushimi. It was pretty amazing. It was I believe, a 36 by 36 meter grid, and anytime the intersections happened, they created these red follies of some sort, and they could either be cafes or theater, outdoor theaters, restrooms. So just, amazing to see. How about Stonehenge? Man, Stonehenge. The thing is, I remember driving in a car and pulling over to the side, and there was this kind of, little store shop or something like this, which kind of shocked me because I'm thinking when I want to drive up to that, I didn't want to see a, restroom and buying T-shirts. But just to see that in general, to be able to sketch it and wonder, who brought this stuff here? What's this for? And maybe understanding towns like Santorini in Greece. Remember when I went out there as well with a bunch of students, and really we came in on a boat in the evening, and really to get around we had to rent mopeds. So we're way on the top. One person walked down, got a moped, went up, took another person down, they got a moped. 2 mopeds went up, 4 people came down. That's how we got around this area, but it was pretty magnificent. And you can see the pictures are beautiful. So again, it takes me back to school. I was thinking, how are those things influenced me? And it was really about what I can see or what I've seen. And if you look at things, they're always influenced by something you've seen before, okay? So the more you see, the more tools you have. I'd always tell my students to get out in the city. A lot of them haven't been to some of these places. And I'm not even, again, just talking in Europe, I'm talking in Chicago. So to be able to be influenced by the Arab Institute over there, by Jacques Nouvel, creating these really cool window shades which kind of contract and retract with the sun. There was another museum here with this just beautiful sphere that just shined light onto different spaces, and thinking, how could I utilize that to the Louvre and Ayampe's pyramids. That opened the year I was there, so I have seen pictures before I went down there. Just thought it was very odd. It did not seem like it was going to work. As I saw it in real and was able to touch the glass and see the light and how it reflected the Louvre around it, that is the new entryway there, how really that influenced my design. How do you contextually put a modern piece of architecture into a very traditional setting? And that was a perfect example. My project was for a dance studio school plaza just outside of Paris. It's the Seine River here. So these kind of inspirations visual inspirations, touching these things, pictures, sketching, that's what makes it real. That's what you do to make it real. In 1991, I graduated, and today, or the economy today, is pretty tough. And so what I realized during that time is connections. How do you utilize your connections? Who are these people that you were talking to, students, teachers? How do you utilize that connection? And I didn't realize that, again, until I started looking back at my professional career and how I got my first job. My parents were building a home, and the contractor had conversations and happened to mention my name. And my father had asked why, because didn't know how that connection worked. Basically, his wife was my basketball coach in 7th grade. So, wow, I got a job that way, actually, and didn't realize how important that was, okay? So to me, connections, utilizing your connections, colleagues who are probably going to be out there as well get jobs, right? They remember working with team members in their group and could remember you and maybe refer you to an opportunity. Ends up being a very good connections. Your teachers here, which I'm sure love to refer students to opportunities as well. So utilize your connections. I look back again and started to think about some of the early stuff. This was kind of my first year. I'm sorry, I was still in college during this time, but I was working at this place in the summer. And my connections, I had other family friends that wanted to build homes that actually trusted me to design their home. And I'm thinking, I'm in school, but I think I can do this. So we got involved with even, furniture, designs as well, carpet designs, railings, things of that nature. But if you look back at this, and I look back at this again and said, what was I doing, right? And I thought I was being taught post-modern architecture at that time, and thought about certain things that affected me. But you'll see as things kind of continue how designs are being affected in the future here. Same condition. I had another opportunity to design someone else's home in a golf course community, and this kind of look was what was in at the time that I was designing. In 1989, there was a couple jobs in between that, but this is where I had the pleasure of meeting Donna at a company called Space. The tagline at Space was, when the receptionist answered the phone, she said, "You've reached Space," which was very interesting because people remember that firm because of that. My first interview at that place was in an open lofted office. I saw dogs running around. I saw children on the computers. I saw a group of individuals during lunchtime sitting in a lounge area watching World Cup soccer. And this is during the middle of the day. So I thought, wow, what kind of environment, is that? And I knew I wanted to be there. I saw principals, first-year individuals, 10-year individuals, but we all sat together in different areas. We're all mixed in. So there was you couldn't see this visual hierarchy, and it was just a different way to work. So the workplace, you'll have opportunities to work at different places, becomes an important aspect of a career, because if you like what you're doing, and you're going to do a lot of it, maybe that's why we dress black, because we're always working late into the night, that you don't mind staying at work, okay? And that's kind of the career end of that. So at Space, we were doing a lot of really interesting type of designs with technology-type companies. This one was for Lucent Technologies, and really trying to develop new ideas for these guys. There's a cafe right here and cafe here. So what happens is in this very large complex, you have meetings of engineers, and the best way for them to learn would be to head over to the cafe and have some coffee. They would interact, and we call it a casual collision area, and provide new ideas that would then get developed through there. So that was a thought behind that. Another one of those similar clients, Verizon Wireless, was a client of mine as well, trying to come up with new ideas, new technologies, thinking of other things that can inspire people in that technology aspect of it. This is their new call center building. How do you make it energetic for the people to come into work to feel like they want to come into work? The other thing I learned in that environment too is and you'll start seeing is this diversity of projects. So we had a client here that she was a single millionaire, wanted to build out a space in a very exclusive neighborhood in the city of Chicago. So not knowing exactly what she was looking for provided a lot of interesting things with her, because I don't know if she knew what she was looking for. But the designs were a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun with the client as well, developing the details and figure out things. But just being able to learn something new, or at least at this level, was definitely a good experience. Fuel Design Collaborative is a firm that I put together with my colleague, Dan Crace. And I specifically remember the situation. I was at Space for that 4 years or so, and we went through about 3 layers of layoffs. And this really is an area of recession. And one thing you will go through within the profession are these recession-type areas, okay? And I've outlined some of the ones that kind of hit me during the time. Function, unity, energy, and life is fuel. That's what we were originally. And I was kind of forced to go on my own and deal with stuff after getting through a couple layoffs, and then ultimately getting the phone call that came up that said, see me in the office, which is pretty scary at the time. But I also knew what was happening with the economy and how things were really difficult. So I had already started putting paperwork into motion, figuring out starting my own thing. And I have actually had a project that got me through that really difficult time. This is a community center in the west side of Chicago for a local church that basically had conference areas and office areas and multi-use areas as well. But it was because of the side project opportunity, and I've been doing side projects for a long time, that I was able to sustain the recession. I actually had former colleagues who were laid off that worked with me to put this 50,000 square foot facility together. Well, what happens after that gets done? You got to look for the next job, right? So, working hard to get your next job is the same thing. And I talked about connections. It was through friends of friends that referred me to Snedero, which is a high-end Italian cabinet company that hired us to do their project. Their main feature piece here is done by Farina, who designs the Ferraris. So that was a feature piece. That was $250,000 for this guy here and a couple of cabinets back there. But some of the things that we looked into was the existing facility in Italy and try to mimic some of those details and opportunities. Talked about diversity and trying to, open yourself up to other type of work. These are what they call right now is dental spas. Dental spas are kind of a big thing, medical spas. And so creating designs that were more friendly than hospital-like. You guys can, I'm sure, see the trend in hospital design. Two different type of doctors up here. We have an endodontist who basically would be working with older adults, right? So have a little more sophisticated feel to or orthodontist who's working with younger kids, and a little more playful atmosphere. Going back to diversity again, another project, different client. I've never done any kind of student housing, private student housing. This was a complex in Tampa, Florida, and you can see the existing facility right there. The whole idea was to rebrand this facility, and how do you rebrand, pink, really? So our idea was Miami, Miami fresh, Miami cool kind of stuff. We didn't have a lot of money in the project, so the obvious thing was, everybody says, what do you do to change a project? You paint it, right? So we painted, this is about 30 acres, and they had about 12 buildings. We painted them all white, and you can see behind there, each building had its own color. So on the stairways or the connections between buildings, we were able to put colors. You can see it a little bit here. That would define wayfinding for these places. We repainted the pool with their logo and provided new furniture throughout. We also created this new lounge area that they have as well, which was like an empty weight room, basically. It was in horrible condition. But dealing with that and also dealing with the private student housing units as well. We couldn't do much with it except, furniture, paint, a little bit of architecture, and, just worked on it a little bit. There's the existing facility or dwelling, and that's what we did with it. In 2008, I had a colleague that I used to look for in terms of advice. His firm was about a year older than my firm. His name is Jim Grasick, and Jim started a firm called Box Studios in Denver, and it was after a layoff that he also went on his own to look for opportunities. So through connections in Chicago with GSA, which is Government Services Organization, which is the largest landholder in the world, we thought we'd get into some government work, or he thought he'd get into government work. His connections were in the city of Chicago. So it took him close to a year to get this approved, and this is pre-recession area, so what foresight, actually. They needed a Chicago office, actually, to really attain this client. So we decided together would allow me more opportunities nationally. So I thought, I'll be willing to give our name to hopefully make or have more opportunities really throughout. So Box Studios we expanded to Chicago and have done some national work because of that. One of the first projects through that is the Bloom Amenity Center in Bloomington, Indiana, very close to the university over there. And as you can see, there's two different complexes. This is another exercise in rebranding this whole place. So this is the units students would live in. That's me. This is the units the students would live in. And the different thing that in terms of developing what we were supposed to develop was this student kind of gathering office work area that was going to be planned here. There's no such thing as this student gathering area that we could find any models on, so we kind of had to develop it on our own. So the way we dealt with this is that it was a very green community. So when we talked about developing a green project here, the village of Bloomington was just very excited about what we can come up with. So we looked at existing, they're a very limestone state, similar to you guys here. And, had your typical gabled roof type buildings, looks like a suburban. But what we did notice that there was this massive 50-foot tree here that really was like in the middle of the site. And how do you kind of work around that, work with that, deal with that? We had a hard-standing building line that came really tight. So it was going to be difficult to, well, they basically said, don't tear the tree down, so work with it. And so what we did is, there's the tree. I think the typical reaction is to really work around the tree, but I always thought there's going to be money issues here, and that's that responsibility portion kicking in and the designer portion kicking back. But we thought, let's kind of work around this with some exterior opportunities. So as we looked at that, we started developing ideas that we can look at to make this a green place. We called the big tree the tree of knowledge, so you have to keep the tree, and that's what we're going to think around. We had some outdoor areas. Bloomington doesn't like parking. So they were saying, you don't need any parking for this facility. We just thought that was really odd, but I understand it. So really, in terms of parking, usually is one of the issues you deal with in zoning, so that becomes something that you think about. But bike racks, pervious driveway, impervious driveways, wind power, things like that is some of the items that we were looking at. That project turned into this. If you can see some of the influences of the limestone on the base, we started using limestone throughout the building sparsely, although connecting us back to the existing buildings. We inverted the roof for water collection, as well as mimicking connections back to the facility there as well. The window scenario, because of budget purposes as well as heat and cooling the building, was a huge deal. So we tried to come up with something dynamic that would fill in the voids and create a little bit more efficiency in that design. And basically on the interior, recycled carpet, materials, cabinetry, low VOC paint, all the stuff that you guys are learning about are some of the items that we dealt with here. We branded the facility as well with some really cool graphics. Some computer areas, lounge areas, and cafe. Again, with that opportunity, we dealt with some of the student living. How do you change the environment? Really through interior design and some furniture. Other projects I want to kind of address. This is a project in Denver, but what I'm seeing in why we in Denver and Chicago get along so well is that our design aesthetics are very similar. So we always try to create a space that has energy, that is a place you want to go to work at. This was one done for a oil company in Denver. This is the one in Chicago. It's called Groupon, which is basically the fastest growing company ever, surpassing Microsoft and Google. But the idea with the two that you see is about environment, and if you make it fun to come to work, people usually love coming to work, right? The trends in technology are I just wanted to maybe talk about projects that are on the board for us right now that we're looking at. And as students always are doing research and finding new materials and how to make things more efficient and better in technology is what we're going to be doing or what you're going to be doing throughout your career, right? So I've got a project currently that I'm working with Master Chef Ki Chen here. And his idea was to come up with it was a sushi concept. And his project was called Sushi Robot. So with his broken English, he sent this video, and you got to look at this thing. You got to look at this thing. And he sent me one of these links to a video, and it was a robot actually making sushi. Not the kind of robot that does this, but it looks more like a manufacturing piece of work, and was spitting out the sushi pieces. So what he would tell me, because he is a sushi master chef, is that these guys get paid a lot of money. And how do I mass produce this, keep the price down, and it's healthy food? So that's why he wanted to come up with this sushi robot thing. The robot itself was already developed. He's trying to develop the branding of the exterior and how that's going to feel. So our initial sketches were a lot more current than this. It developed into this when he said, "Did you ever see the movie Alien?" I said, "Oh, yeah." So really, that's kind of what inspired us. We pulled up some pictures of some architectural, everyday industrial design pieces. And it's turned to this so far. But he would have his employees work in lab jackets in the back, and everything from the packaging to the trays to the silverware would be all designed. So basically what you guys are really studying today. Technology-wise, some graphics, computer-generated glass where you can touch the glass and you see the orders come through. You could see the robot working through that glass piece as well. That was kind of an interesting aspect of it. You know, tray releases, utility releases, utensils, I'm sorry. And then, you know, just pay-as-you-go kind of thing would probably be in food courts or airports of some sort. We're also working on a project in the South Loop for a doctor who's wanting to redevelop this really dilapidated building. As I saw it, the scale, just everything was kind of strange, and how are we going to deal with that stuff? And the first thing is he's going to turn it into medical offices and clinics. So how do you bring people here and really change that a little bit? I don't know. But what we ended up looking at, the view, are these two buildings. He happens to own this building as well, but these are two buildings we're going to deal with off Wabash, which is a major street. How do you make this look better? So I started, obviously, again, the green aspect of it and technology aspect, wind power, which is being currently used a lot in the city. Bike racks, green roofs, LED lighting, geothermal. One of the things I thought we can do, and we're still trying to research this, is a project done by Richard Meyer. It's actually a cladded material that cleans the air. So it works very much like coal. So if you put coal out, it'll absorb the dirt. It smells, right? So how it regenerates itself is when it rains, it just cleans it off and goes through the same process again. So it's cleaning the air. So pretty cool. So we started looking at some studies and how do you make this vibrant and create some kind of dynamics to this building, really. So we thought about these panels and some research with fabric. There's Kinetic Fabric that is being worked on right now that you could plug your iPod to and everything like that. So as you move, it creates dynamics in the fabric, which then can be stored as power. So we thought, hey, we can start, putting these kind of banners throughout to cause some kind of shape on the building, give it color that can be utilized to maybe harness some energy. We thought, with the facade, we could take some of the facade, deal with some of the materials. It's called, I believe it's TA Active, which again is that coal type material. And then provide some green aspects on the design with some foliage, as you can see there. So budget is a driver, by the way, so that we're trying to think of this, how do you do it without tearing basically the whole building down and redoing this stuff? So simple, new ideas like that are some of the things that we were looking at to deal with this project. In closing, I'm moving on to 2010 and the future. I'm really not sure what that really means for the profession, except of what I've learned. I'm sure there'll be other things that I'll see. What I do know, I have my daughter over here. Oops. I have my daughter over here that is, I kind of see this design aspect in her, and she's always playing and creating things, and I wondered if that's what I was doing when I was younger. And I can see her getting involved in that. So I'm wondering, I'd bring her to my office and would tell my colleagues or employees that she may be your boss one day, so be nice. But the things that I definitely learned throughout those 26 years is, find people that it can inspire you, teachers, colleagues, books, students, that would give you passion for this stuff. And if you have passion for this, it's not like working, man. It's a lot of fun. Second thing is experience. The more experiences you have, the more you can be out, enjoying the city, getting out in the world, visiting different countries, and don't visit the countries and eat at McDonald's. Try the local, baguettes and cheese, and really experience it. It doesn't have to just be architecture. It could be those kind of simple experiences that bring knowledge and tools to you in your profession. Connections. Connections bring opportunities. So think about those connections and how you can utilize those connections to bring you opportunities or maybe future employment somewhere. The workplace, if obviously as students you'll be out in the workplace, the first place you go is not really usually the last place you're going to be. So look at other places, find a place that you really like and that you don't mind working late and being treated well by the employees or employer. And you will enjoy that environment, basically. I've been with my wife for over 20 years, and so she knows the grind of architecture, and I don't know how she puts up with my work and being out and energetic about all this stuff and raising the kids at the same time. But I think she saw that I really love what I do. Resolve. In this section, what I want you guys to take from that is how do you diversify what you know, right? Are you a good sketcher? Are you good in computers? Can you be a good marketer, team player, project manager? The more tools that you have, the better opportunity. And when that time comes where there is this recession and people have to go, the people with the most tools are usually the guys that hang around. Collaboration for growth is really just to be able to look for opportunities and grow as your career goes, meet different people. We do a lot of collaborations with different architects, and to me it's not about the money stuff, it's really about learning. And the more you see and look at other things, the better you are. Okay? So I think that's it. I just want to throw out questions and answers. And I appreciate you guys coming. Being a lecturer for Lee today was pretty awesome. And I can go back to my office and say that Kansas State was pretty cool. All right, thank you. Is there any questions?
think that I'm asking Ferdinand to talk a little bit about the process of design. I think one of the important things for students, you touched on early on, is, you know, when you were studying under Tigerman, for instance, and you were, as I was at that time, also being subjected to the world of postmodernism and its misapplications at times. How'd you break that mold, and what processes do you engage in, and when you are marketing your services, how do you convince your clients that your processes are ones that would align with them?
I think the biggest aspect of that process and trying to convince clients, you know what, our sell is diversity of practice. So and this really kicked into when we were doing these dental spas, is that the client found it intriguing that we knew things about other type of work. So for them to come to us, we say we have a different angle. If I was somebody who did a lot of the dental type offices kind of thing, it would be a different, they would always focus in on certain things. But because we do so many different type of projects, we look at it in a lot of different angles. And I think that ends up being an advantage to us. In terms of the process of learning as your student or meeting with clients, I think what we typically do, and you can see a lot of projects are somewhat different from each other and really heavily influenced by who the client is. So when the client says, I want something kind of new or modern, you know, new or modern means a lot different it means a lot of different things to different people. So I would always have them provide pictures or, you know, any information that would help define what they're trying to tell us. And from there, we do our own research to find kind of other inspirations to help define their space. Anyone else?
I was just wondering if you found in your probation several things we found in Exhibit 3, and that is that, well, you can hear me? It's for the recording. You're recording. Well, maybe I better not say this.
Watch your language.
The thing we found is that a lot of times when you're going in to make a new statement or a new idea and things like that, you come up with the responsibility of having to educate your client, because your client isn't up to your standard.
Yeah.
So you essentially have to bring them up to that point to actually make them understand where the value is and the extent that it's going to have in the future.
I think what you find when you meet the clients is, because they're not as educated in some of these things, well, how do you convince them? And some of these ideas that you might bring up might not even be proven yet necessarily. So I guess that's part of the risk. You know, you got to be comfortable with whatever you're presenting, that it would really actually work. And I think being student, just getting out of school, that kind of stuff, and trying to convince either your project managers or your head designers, how do you convince them that what you're trying to present is the right idea? Communication, selling, and research, I think those are really important things. As long as you feel comfortable with the research you're getting, that's probably the best way to help convince people. Anybody else?
Were you able to apply some of those branding principles to your own firm, or do you kind of leave that deliberately vague so that you don't risk turning away certain clients?
We've used, you're talking about with just other clients and trying to help them. We talked about that earlier, because I know that's part of the school, and it's so new, this branding aspect of it, that to create a service that could do the interiors, the architecture, and the branding, there's few firms, and if they are, they're big firms. So trying to understand the value, getting the client to understand the value of the connection of those three pieces is not always the easiest thing. So only as of, again, the last 5 years or so, people are starting to see that. But when you look at that, that always relates to cost. And every time we try to marry mostly the branding portion of it, it's kind of a process, and you just want them to buy off. It takes some time for them to understand the value of that. So it's just different right now. And educating them and telling them the value would obviously work sometimes, but a lot of times, to be honest with you, as we work with these individual practitioners, let's just say on the dental side, it's a tough sell.
I think what I was getting at was, do you actually try to promote yourself with a very distinct brand and image, and do you take that formula and try to do it to your own firm?
You know what? I think we do. My office is made of a lot of younger people in their 20s, and yes, there's a certain way that we want them to think or feel or research or be passionate about. Again, as a teacher myself, I go through. I've probably gone through about 40 interns throughout my practice. But what I look for is a commonality with these guys, and so they didn't necessarily have to be the A++ students really to work in our office. What I was looking for is people who can work like we work, that would get along, that have the same ideas. And as you guys go out and get interviews and things of that nature, it's not always about, what your work is. Sometimes it's about the fit and how can you fit in, or is your personality going to fit in on that. And typically that's what I look at when the work is basically the same. Who has the personality to work in our office?
Where those hand skills have come in.
And I love, as Donna took me around the school, and I just noticed all the hand sketching stuff, and I love that. But I don't know if that's because I'm the old school guy. But to be honest with you, what it does is it exposes you to opportunities with a client. And when they're asking you point blank, well, what do you mean on that perspective? And you can sketch it up like that, and they're like, oh, I see it. That's value. And I love that question because my office is about 10 guys, and there's 2 of them that are really good sketchers, and the rest are just the technology savvy guys. But I go to these other people because they're the guys who can sketch it as quick and just 10 times faster than everyone else. And I love that you guys don't hit the computers till much later, because to understand scale and proportions, things of that nature, is why, I'm sure that's why you guys are dealing with things by hand. And if you can sketch things 3-dimensionally quickly and be able to show somebody a picture, that's rare. And I'm sure that's why K-State here is valued in the marketplace because of those skills. And I've seen a lot of those skills coming out of here, which is cool. Yeah. Anybody else? Thank you.